Alright, time for Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 54. We just had a failed storm against Pangea. We're not the only ones this game to have a failed storm against that throne. Pangea doing an excellent job of defending it. Let's see, someone has claimed the Throne of Life. This looks like it is the Merfolk nation that has grabbed that, so that's probably bad news for anyone hoping to win this game. We are also still searching for astral sites, and we don't get anything there. Bringing in some more eagles. We send 2 castings of lesser horrors against those demons that took our province and destroyed our fort. We do some more remote site searching, all of which fails, as happens. So let's see if the horrors manage to take this province for us. Yeah, there's not too many devils left, although I think I forgot to actually send anybody to take this province from the horrors. So yeah, the soul torns are pretty nasty. Of course, then again, yeah, the devils are pretty nasty as well. Man, they're really nasty. So turns out 2 castings of lesser horrors. I don't even think we managed to kill one of these spine devils. I have to say, I really underestimated these guys. In a lot of ways, they seem kind of average, but I guess, 2 fairly high damage attacks with decent attack skill, like decent defense, decent protection, good amount of hit points. They definitely are stacking up the afflictions, but they've managed to survive quite a bit. So yeah, we just waste some blood slaves in some of our mages' turns. So, send Lesser Horror, a good spell, but it does have its limitations, so we'll have to rethink what we're going to send to recapture that province. We did a bunch of manual site searching, none of which works out. Yeah, none of which works out. But at least our blood hunters are always active, capturing blood slaves. So decent haul this turn. We'll probably want to open up another province relatively soon. I think we are summoning... I thought we were summoning a Ice Devil this turn, but maybe we must have changed our minds. But yeah, we probably should start saving blood slaves for a casting of Illwinter. I do think it is starting to get to that point in the game. Even if we're not feeling super confident in being able to hold everyone off, it's turn 54, like we're over halfway through the game at this point. So if we do want to be casting that, we're going to need to build up a good bank. And then, of course, bringing in the Jarls costs something like, 88 blood slaves per cast. So even after casting Illwinter, we're going to want to at least have, getting at least 88 blood slaves a turn so we can bring one of those guys in each turn. Anyway, all this to say that, my blood hunting is still a little on the weak side. And then, of course, Relay, trying to snipe territory. Okay, he's got a Vastness. This is a Relay thing. This is their Pretender, so yeah, pretty high pathing, no slots on this guy, not a lot of protection, but he does have a bunch of Mind Blasts, some Steel Strengths, decent amount of hit points, although, outside of Dominion we can see that it doesn't have that many hit points, so these guys are somewhat scary, but with the low protection and the not crazy amount of hit points, they're definitely killable. They do like teleport and do all kinds of nasty stuff. They're probably going to be enough, or it is probably going to be enough to take out what is here, because I think they're also ethereal. Yeah, they're also ethereal, no magic weapons here, and the arrows are pretty inaccurate. Yeah, and I think, they're enslaving mind, yeah, because they're a pretty high astral mage, so yeah, this is not going to work out for Pythium. We might have to deal with that at some point, right? This is kind of our gains that they're cutting into. Now, we were expecting people to cut in, but, Relay with their nasty Dominion and just the fact that they're an underwater nation, like, we don't want them in the neighborhood. We do not want to encourage this, so we will probably work to keep them in the ocean, and of course they are also busy fighting Satis, so that is one of the reasons that Satis has been busy. And then let's see, we get attacked by Pythium. Yeah, I was expecting to get counter-raided, definitely. We had to pull our main army back to deal with the fact that we failed the storm in Pangea. So we're not really contesting any of this. Yeah, I like these raiding groups, although of note, there's no bodyguards here really. Though they do have some gems, so... And it looks like Pythium went with larger on the bless. I had forgotten that, and so it's going to be kind of relevant on their mages. So yeah, these Serpent Cataphracts are going to be nasty to deal with, but if we can get something that's going to jump to the back, it wouldn't be too hard to snipe the leadership of that. So we'll have to think about that. And then let's see, there's a battle between the Merfolk Nation and Marignon in their ongoing war. They are on top of Marignon's capital, so hopefully there's lots of assassinations going on. This looks like just more or less a mundane raiding squad. Does have some sacreds in here, but doesn't look like anybody to bless them, but it's not really going to matter. Pretty low level province defense investment, and not a very good PD type. So yeah, 2 crossbowmen die, not a big deal. So this is not looking good for Marignon, but if they can win on top of their capital, then they can, you know, at least slow them down. Although without help, I don't think Marignon is going to be able to win this war. But then again, I'm wrong about stuff all the time. Satis clearing out. I think these are the Demon Knights, if I had to guess. Yeah. This is mostly like chaffy undead from the look of it. Ooh, some poison slingers though. Quite a few poison slingers from the look of it. As well as a Death 2 mage who looks like he's mostly here for undead leadership. Do demons... Interesting, they only have fire resistance. So yeah, I could definitely see this working because I don't think they actually have a ton of health. Well, they have 20 hit points, and they are fairly killy, being, you know, heavy cavalry essentially. Let's see a little bit of swarm casting in the back here. They're definitely going to lose some poison slingers, as well as a decent number of chaff undead, but the chaff undead they don't really care about too much, and unfortunately some of those poison slingers like ran ahead. But otherwise, like, this seems pretty competent. I think it's going to work out for them without too much loss. And, like, Demon Knights are pretty tough to get rid of. So I'll definitely have to remember that, you know, poison is a bit of a weakness to Demon Knights, especially since we're planning on using Demon Knights some this game. So that does work out for Satis, although it's not without loss. The Long Dead, though, they probably don't care about too much, and like 6 Poison Slingers, that's not that bad. They're a little on the expensive side, but it's not the end of the world. And, you know, taking out this number of Demon Knights for this cheap, I think it's worth it. Still, not a perfect battle. And then let's see, we've got a raid against Pythium here. Right, we're just sending in a Skelly Spammer who's been twice borned. And there's quite a bit. Yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting, right? And it's one of the reasons that we don't really have any attacks this turn. Because since we don't really have an army threatening their capital anymore, you know, they're free to move out with significant forces. So that meant that anywhere that we raided, basically like one province, our raiders were likely to die. And so we chose to only raid with our twice-borned, you know, mage. So we don't really lose anything here, but we also, you know, kind of guessed wrong. I mean, this is the only place that this mage could move. So really, Pythium just guessed right and was able to, you know, block the only raid that we did, which is the disadvantage of us not risking our raiders that are not twice born and could die. So obviously we do not take that province, but we at least know where, like, kind of, I don't know about the majority of their army, but a good chunk of their army has moved out to. Not that we really have anything that we can block that with, although... Yeah, we don't actually lose a province here, so they just chose to block one of our raids. Then we have some unexpected events. There's a fertility cult. We should probably look into this and try to get rid of it. Fertility cults eventually result in a lot of independent attacks, as I have learned in other games. So not as benign as I'd first hoped, which makes sense. This being dominions, we find 8 fire gems. That's nice, considering we have misfortune. Speaking of misfortune, here's a little more misfortune. That's okay. The stars are right for evocation. I don't think there's any evocation rituals we're really interested in. We get discovered in Atlantis. Wow, there's a lot of patrolling going on here, and quite a few mages. So I would say that Satis has taken an inland province, but there's a decent chance that either that is a strong army. Relay has taken an inland province of Satis's. So either there's a strong army there, or Relay has parked a strong army in the water right next to Atlantis. So unfortunately, we're not really going to see a whole lot of this conflict, but yeah, it looks like for the moment, Satis is tied down dealing with Relay, which is probably good news for us. And of course, Pangea is breached. We know about that. I mean, it's good that it's still breached. And then our patrolling, of course, and we get our white mage back, who is at least, you know, size 2, so that's something. And I will catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and what we're doing about it. Probably first things first, we are storming here in Pangea. This is a little bit of a lazy storm, and I'm not 100% sure it's going to work out for us. I think there is a pan in here, and then of course those like 3 thugs, which we are going to struggle with. They're not going to be as difficult to get rid of because they're not going to have as much, point buff support, and they also don't have any elemental resistance. So really the main, even though we're bringing a ton of stuff in, the main plan is going to be our water mages casting Frozen Heart, and I do think we have enough water mages here that we should be able to seal the deal, fingers crossed. But yeah, haven't really like constructed anything specific to counter what's inside of here, and obviously it didn't work out for us before. So we'll see how that goes. After that, we're probably going to need to refit this army a little bit. Probably the biggest thing, and probably should have actually sent this mage into motion this turn. We have these ladies that we've been recruiting, and a few of them have random into air death, and they cannot cast Wailing Winds without the support of a communion, and they don't have any paths to enter a communion. However, we did get our Astral Earth Cross-Path Spectre, and we finally managed to scrape together the boosters for him so that he can start forging crystal matrices, which will allow any mage to enter a communion as a communion master. So he's going to forge at least 3 of these, which I think is the number of those mages we have. We'll send this lady forward, and then we'll be able to add Wailing Winds to our armies, and that's going to be a pretty major upgrade, and that's probably what we're going to rely on against Pythium. I don't think their units or their mages have very good morale, and Wailing Winds coupled with skeleton spam. Possibly also like Foul Vapors, although a lot of their stuff does have poison resistance, so that's not going to be as effective. But anyway, we just have the skeletons out there to tie them up while Wailing Winds takes effect, and I do think we'll be able to seal this war without too many losses. Famous last words. That'll also give us a chance to collect some of the units that we forgot to grab when we went back on top of Pangea, reload on gems, all that kind of good stuff. So this war still has a little ways to go, but should be winding down relatively soon. Also related to that, we're going to try to block some raiding here by bringing in all of our raiders into this province and a bit of a PD dump with some barbarians. So we'll see. If Pythium chooses to commit, a ton of stuff to this, which they might, but they also have other places that they want to raid. They do have Relay to worry about here. So we'll see. It is a bit dangerous committing all of our raiders like this when they could get hit by a superior force and we'll lose a bunch of them. But yeah, I don't know. They're also not really doing anything for us right now, so that's how we're going to use them. And then we're also going to commit our Ice Devil here behind also, a decent province defense dump, hoping to catch mostly these Serpent Cataphracts. So for the moment, playing defense against Pythium and trying to finish off Pangea. Also, speaking of playing defense, Pangea managed to slip out a raider. So I'm assuming this is like some sort of thug, and yeah, we don't really have a whole lot to stop them here. Probably actually should have moved these priests. That was an oversight. So yeah, we could be losing our stack of priests, which is not the end of the world, but they are nice, to help try and control our dominion. We are going to, put together a defense here of a bunch of random stuff, really mostly relying on like Frozen Heart. So we'll see how all that goes. We are building up forces in Abyssia. Now we're building up kind of another like mundane army. So we'll be using most of these berserkers, as bodyguards. Speaking of which, we have sort of like the core of, what could become another army moving forward to take these friggin' Spine Devils. And then, we're going to hang out and we're going to fortify this. We're probably also going to start a fortification here. Even though we're not claiming this throne, it's still a somewhat valuable province in terms of gem income. And, you should always put forts on top of thrones. So we'll start a fort here in the not too distant future as well. And that's pretty much it as far as like our major plans go. We do have a few summons coming in this turn. I think our Pretender is summoning in an Archdevil, because why not? Like I said, I've never really gone deep down into Blood, so even though this is going to delay our Illwinter casting, I kind of want to just give it a shot. And I'm also not really feeling, like I said, confident enough to fight everyone. So particularly concerned about, what Utgard is thinking. They are about to finish their war against Raga, and they've been leaving garrisons in at least most of their forts that we've kept eyes on. So this isn't like that unusual for them, and doesn't necessarily indicate that they're planning on attacking us, but it is a lot of troops on our border and a lot of like unoccupied troops, not to mention that like this is already on our border. So until they commit to something else, I'm a little hesitant to either A, cast Illwinter, or B, like engage in another major war. The other major war would be against Gath, but we kind of want to keep our options open, right? Like we've been talking about how we're going to use all of our devils here as another army that would go against Gath, but we could also easily turn this army south where it is now, versus if we do launch a war against Gath and move it deep into Gath's territory, then we don't have too much in the way of defense. Like we have been recruiting some units here and leaving behind some mages, so it's not like these forts are undefended, but it's not heavily defended. Now, of course, this does mean that we have pretty significant forces that are just sitting around doing nothing, which is never great. It is turn 54, right? The game is more than halfway over, and we should probably be thinking about how we want to win this. On the other hand, attacking Gath doesn't actually really net us much in the way of thrones. Like we would have to we would basically have to eliminate Gath, right? Here it is. Yeah, so this is in Gath's cap circle. So, we would have to push extremely deep into their territory and pretty much eliminate them before we would pick up even a single throne from them. So in some ways, Gath is not an appealing target for us, like now that I'm actually looking at the situation. Of course, picking up capitals is really important. We would like another capital. There's one right on our border. There's actually like two basically right on our border. So that would be the main reason to attack Gath, is it would be a pretty significant increase in our power. So probably the thing to do is, assuming Utgard goes elsewhere, and once we finish this off, then we will attack Gath and basically cast Illwinter once the war starts going in our favor, because if we eat a bunch of Gath, at that point we'll be large enough, everybody's probably already going to be pretty worried about us anyway, and we're going to have a huge target on our back regardless, so we might as well also have Illwinter up at that point. But if Utgard chooses to attack us next, I think the rest of the world will be happy to let us fight, because Utgard is also quite large and powerful. And so if we don't have Illwinter up, then we're kind of maybe not like the good guy or the underdog, but we also might not get dogpiled because people will be worried that Utgard would run away with things, versus if you have Illwinter up, then maybe the world might decide like, yeah, let's get rid of Vaettiheim. So in some ways, we're just kind of, waiting to see like what Utgard is going to do next. But we don't want to wait too long. So, if Utgard doesn't move on someone else within the next 5 to 10 turns, we will probably attack Gath anyway. We may also have to attack into Marignon, because we are counting on grabbing their 2 thrones in the long term. Sorry, Marignon. And while I do think they are, a ways out from being eliminated, like this is not a good look. So, there's a lot in here. It's not impossible that they turn this around, but yeah, I just know that the player playing this nation is really good. So this is going to be a tall order, especially too because like their position is pretty good. And Marignon is fighting 2 powers. Phlegra is not very strong, but I mean it's always a consideration when you have to deal with like 2 different players attacking you. So we do want to be ready to try to grab these thrones, and there's a good chance that will set off a war between ourselves and the Merfolk nation. So anyway, that's just kind of some high-level thoughts. We'll have to keep an eye on the situation. Otherwise, like, yeah, not doing too much troop recruitment, a bit of troop recruitment on the border with Marignon, because like I said, we do kind of want to build up some forces that are going to be able to intervene. Also of note, we are starting vampire production this turn. Yeah, I don't know. Vampires are really good. They're excellent raiders, but we already have like pretty good raiding options. So like for Vaettiheim, like is this a waste of blood slaves, right? Should we just be focusing on Illwinter? I don't know. Hard to say. The Nifl Jarls that you get from Illwinter do cost upkeep, so in some ways they're not great. Because most of the other summons do not cost gold upkeep, which is one of their major advantages. So again, I haven't really gone deep into vampires. I don't know how many vampires we're necessarily going to make. We're certainly not looking to just like explode with vampires, because I do want to try out Illwinter and see how that goes. But probably for a couple turns, we'll build up a decent force of vampires. Like, having some immortals is definitely very useful, although there are quite a few astral powers in the late game. I don't think Gath has too much in the way of astral. That is not true. Gath definitely has plenty of astral, like these guys who are slow to recruit and cap only, but could be pretty powerful astral mages. And they also have recruit anywhere guys that can random into astral, so probably not like a astral powerhouse per se, but like, yeah, they've got plenty of astral running around. So, we do need to worry about soul slay and stuff for our immortals. And then, like, yeah, Utgard also definitely has plenty of astral. So, like, there's just, yeah, a lot of astral running around. The merfolk definitely have lots of astral. So there's a lot of astral in the late age. So I'm not really sure even, how effective the immortals are going to be. That said, we have plenty of astral pearls, right? So we definitely can put magic resistance gear on those vampires. And, like, yeah, I think they're still going to be, like, pretty annoying raiders, pretty difficult to get rid of. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 54.